if you have two notes that touch each other, whether it is a sharp to a sharp, or a letter to a sharp, or a sharp to a letter, or a letter to a sharp, that then finally goes to a letter, if you have anything that touches each other like this, it's a measurement of 1/2. You see these all touch each other? Each one of them is 1/2. It is chromatic city building. This is what chromatic city streets are. They don't have 8 houses per block like Major Town does, which I just haven't shown you yet. I got a Major Town here. Here's a Major Town street. Here's a Major Town street here, which has 8 houses on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember where the hashtag is? Has to be on the sharp side. That's what designates on the sharp side is the hashtag mark. So when you see that next to a letter, you're on this side, the raised thing. It's so cool. Because it's raised, you can go underneath it with your thumb. You can swing your thumb, which is always on the street at halfway point walking down the center of the street. So it's got letters on the lower side and sharps on the upper side, because that's where your finger's really walking, your thumb is. Yeah, it's not down here in the alley. It's way up here. These fingers, look how these fingers, the second, third, and fourth finger are dangling off this way. That's because I'm building some really strong intervals between my second and my first. Look at that. Look at that distance if you just move it like that. Look at the great distance. Between my third and my first? Wait, hold on. I am holding all these notes, this poster, and with this one available hand, I am demonstrating the fingers. So, between my first and my second, all of a sudden bring a big, huge distance. Because I've angled. So now if I angle even further, between my first and my third, I've got a bigger distance. My first and my fourth, I've got an even bigger distance. And then my little fifth finger is just reaching out there, just dangling out there. That's where I want it. Because I'm really concerned about my first and my second, my first and my second, my first and my third, my first and my fourth. Those distances, I am very... Wait a minute. Whoa! All fingering. Like this. From your first finger to your fourth finger is a line. For your first finger to your third finger is a line. From your first finger to your second finger is a line. Those lines that I'm talking about shrink by measurement of 1/2 step. One of these. One that you're touching. They shrink by 1/2 step. So you have to know what it feels like to go this far with one note in between. Sometimes on both the sharps at the same time with one note in between. That you're raised out there on the sharp side and you have to have one note in between. That's so important, that feel. What does it feel like to have two fingers balanced on that height of the sharping? You got to know that. And then what does it feel like to go from a sharp to a letter? For example, when you need one note in between, when you're going from like, I think this might be C sharp to B. I don't know. Let's see. We'll have to go this way. We'll have to go height-wise. Well, actually, the keyboard would be this way. Let's go that first. Let's correct this. Okay, so here we've got from B, if it makes more sense, to C sharp. I only had the wood keys upside down, which, by the way, weigh at least 2 grams a piece. And why have weighted keys of this old-fashioned wood that always there? Why not have plastic keys that don't have any weighted stuff and you just fly? Anyway, so that's my secondary opinion. In between half steps, talk. Of half steps, talk. Of half steps, talk. This means these touch each other. But if I have one note in between, can I feel the distance in between my first and my second finger of a whole step, 2 half steps? Here's a half step, here's a half step. One note in between, 2 half steps, in other words, squish to squish, that equals a whole. 1/2 plus half equals a whole. So we have 2 measurements in music. 1/2, which is touching each other, or 1 whole, which has one note in between. Whether it is from a letter to a sharp and having one letter in between because of a letter-to-letter squish, or if we are between a sharp and a sharp, which has a letter in between, That's a possibility. We go sharp to sharp right there. You got one in between. It's got to be a whole step. Or once again, you have this beautiful major street with 8 houses on a street. It takes the 12 houses that are on each block in Chromatic City, and it separates them by our magic of measurement. Our new magic of measurement, 2 things: 1/2s and 1/2s. 1/2 is represented by the fraction 1/2. A whole is represented by a W. So, when you see a pattern like whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, you are looking at whole step instructions and half step instructions. You're looking at houses that have more distance than half, 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 which would be Chromatic City half. You're looking at the suburbs here. You're looking at the first major town. You're looking at the first town that ever moved out from Chromatic City and formed their own suburb out from Chromatic City, called Major Town. Because in Major Town, there are 12 streets, of course, because there's 12 possible notes. As in Chromatic City, the addresses are the letters. In Chromatic City, you're a specific letter. If you start on E, F was the second one, F sharp was the third one, G was the next one. These are touchers. These are the ones that are touching each other. These are the ones that I was talking about right here. These are either a letter to a letter, or a letter to a sharp, or a sharp to a letter. Back and forth. Chromatic, it's called, by half step. It is where the half step really rules. Chromatically, moving by half steps. It is chromatic. It is meant to be moved by half steps. But I say if you have 2 halves equal a whole. A half plus a half equals a whole. Give me a half a pie and another half a pie, I'm going to have a whole pie. So I'm going to designate another measurement in music, and it's going to be called a whole. Well, the whole is spelled W-H-O-L-E, not H-O-L-E. So it's not an H. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, that might be interesting. All right, hold on. Sometimes you need a notebook. It's spelled W-H-O-L-E. That's why it's not, H-H half, H-H-H half. Because that would be whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. But in music, it is not H-O-L-E, it is W-H-O-L-E. Because as in a whole pie, not as in a hole in Mars. Ding! Going distance, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. But always starting at whatever 1 is, whatever my unison, my beginning root note is, my beginning note, my bass note. How do I start my intervaling if I don't have something to start on called a something or other? Yes, if you know intervals. Because intervals are talking about 2 notes at one time. It's not talking about measuring each time by, going whole, whole, half, or whole, whole, half, whole, whole, or whatever, from 1. No. It's taking and knowing in your brain a distance from 1 automatically represented by 1 number. It's taking 2 letters and grouping them together and making it 1 number. That's so great, isn't it? I mean, really. Hey, if I can abbreviate 2 letters, making it into 1 number, then that would be so great. And that's what an interval is. It's 2 letters into 1 number. Okay, all right. Inch to the left, okay. They're represented by numbers. So whatever letter is my 1, and 1 is an interval, you all, and so is 8. That's an interval. You've learned 2 intervals already. And if there's only 12... there is only 12 possible intervals of distancing, spreading 1/2 by 1/2 by 1/2 by chromatic city distancing from that 1 and going, oh my gosh, interval to a half, and I'll have to label that something like, nope, can't. I'm not going to let you. You know why? Because there is no half interval description in our address book. No half. We use the half step as a measurement, not as an interval. We use the W, not an H, but the W as a measurement, not an interval. We use the number 1 as an interval. We use the number 2 as an interval. Not the number 1/2, the number 2. But what's the trick? In between 2 and 1, there's something in between. Yeah. Because in order to make a whole step, you have to have a note in between, remember? Even if you're going letter to letter or sharp to sharp, you have to have one note in between, remember? So that second note is a second, but it has one note in between. It does not need a description of that 1/2 step distance that occurs first in the interval family. It's confusing in music, it always is, because you think a W equals a 2. It's true. A whole step from a 1 equals a 2. A W. This is a W. Or an H, H-O-L-E, or whatever. So, I'm telling you, this is a trick right in the beginning.